Hello again. Linda Stern here at the Stern Family Art Collection. Welcome. Today we're going to show you one of my very favorite paintings in our collection. A little girl painted in Provincetown, Massachusetts, where I'm from, by Christian Von Schneidau. Here's John Stern to give you a little art history about Christian Von Schneidau and this painting.
Hello. This is also one of my favorite paintings. It's 20 by 16 inches. It's a portrait of a young woman. It's painted in Provincetown in 1920. It's titled Provincetown Girl, and as Linda said, it's by a man named Christian Von Schneidau. Von Schneidau, as Linda said, was born in Sweden, and he came to the United States with his family when he was just 7 years old and settled in Minnesota. As a young man, he studied at the Art Institute of Chicago School, and in 1917 he came to Los Angeles and set up a studio to paint portraits. In 1920, he returned back east to study at the Cape Cod School of Art in Provincetown, where this painting was painted. If you look carefully, you can see the Provincetown Pier dock behind a young lady. There, the teacher and founder of that school was an artist named Charles Webster Hawthorne, and he was very interested in teaching his students about color and about light. So as you see in this painting, and it's a portrait of a young woman, but there's not much detail as to what her face looks like or her clothes, but it's really a study about light and color. And in one of the exercises that Hawthorne had his students do in Provincetown was to paint this type of thing, but not to worry so much about the face and the portrait part, but to study more the light and especially the light coming from the side or from behind. Because he asked them to really ignore the facial features, these were lovingly called mudheads by the students. But in fact, they were serious exercises in painting light. One of the assistants there at the Provincetown School was a man named Henry Henshey, and we'll talk about Henshey a little bit later. But when he returned from Provincetown in 1921, he began working for 20th Century Fox Studios, and his specialty was portraits. And many of the portraits that you might see in some of the 20th Century Fox movies, things that are hanging over the fireplace or hanging on the wall, are very likely painted by him, at least if it was done in the 20s and 30s. He also specialized in painting commission portraits of famous Hollywood stars. He later moved to Laguna Beach, where he retired, and he died there in 1976. Back to Henry Henshey, we're going to show you a painting by one of his students in a few minutes. And you can see that, again, that the emphasis is on the light, very, very much about the light. So,
Well, John, I just want to point out, he is an impressionist. And look as we bring in close up, look at those beautiful lavender purple shadows. Isn't that the hallmark of an impressionist painting?
That's one of the hallmarks. The other one is the really bold use of color. The young lady is wearing what appears to be a white or maybe a light pink clothing, but there's all sorts of colors in it, especially in the shadow. One of the traits of Impressionism is there's really more attention to color in the shadow, which you would think would be less color because it's darker, but in fact, there is more color in the shadow when you look at it closely, and that's part of what Impressionism does. It brings in color to create a lot of beautiful light.
When you look close up, it just seems like mad brush strokes, but as you pull out on this, it really gives you just a wonderful feel about the little girl. Even though you don't see details of her face, you almost can feel what she's thinking.
Well, that's a good observation, Linda, and that's what a good impressionist painting. You must understand, this is done while he was a student, and if he's this good as a student, he was really good later when he was mature and was working for the studios. But again, this is an exercise in capturing light and color, not so much into the personality of the sitter.
Didn't Hawthorne have a pretty illustrious past as well?
Yes, he's well known as a portrait painter, and when he moved to Provincetown, he started a large series of paintings that had to do with the fishermen there. Provincetown was originally a Portuguese fishing village, populated by Portuguese people. It's in Massachusetts, but most of the fishing industry there was done by Portuguese people. So he was fascinated by the canneries, by the boats, by the people cleaning the fish, and there's a series of those that he's well known for.
And then it was Henchy who took over after him?
Yes, when Henchy took over, which was in 1928, he continued teaching the same philosophy of the art. And one of the paintings we have,
Here, why don't you switch the painting?
I'll just pick it up, is this portrait of this famous Hollywood star.
Ah,
Oh, wait a minute. That's Linda, my wife. And it's by Camille Przewodek. The interesting thing about Camille Przewodek is that she was a longtime student of Henry Henchy. So she has the same approach to light as Henchy did and as Charles Webster Hawthorne did. So again, this is backlit. The sun is hitting the back of the viewer, and the face, although it's detailed here because it is a commissioned portrait, is in shadow, and it's in very cool shadow, while the rest of the painting, the hat and the periphery around her shoulders, show a lot of light coming around. So this is a direct descendant of Henry Henchy, and Henry Henchy was one of the teachers for Von Schneidau.
wow. That's certainly interesting. Today's artists, a lot of people don't really realize that they are direct descendants of these historic artists, and that's what makes them so significant. There's a long line of this, and why people should be collecting art and paintings.
Well, the first reason is it enriches your life. So
Most definitely.
buy something that you want to look at every day, that you want to feel good about, that you feel alive. It doesn't matter what style, it doesn't have to be Impressionism. It can be contemporary, it can be abstract, just as long as it enriches your life, and you'll be happy.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of Art with the Sterns, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.